Thank you for tuning in to Entertain the Geeky, your source for nerd news.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Jason back at you with more nerd news. So today I am joined by the fabulous Joe Moore.
Am I that fabulous?
You are that fabulous.
I don't know. It's been like nearly a decade since someone probably used that as a descriptor. I'm not as pretty or makeup covered as I used to be.
Well, I'm.
But you know what? I will
fabulous.
I will take it. Thank you for the compliment.
So today on the show we are going to review Captain Marvel. And we are definitely going to be getting into some spoilers. We are not going to shy away from talking about the details of the movie that we enjoyed. So if you've not seen the movie, go out and see it, and then come back and listen to us talk about it.
First off, question why it took you so long. Then go buy a ticket, go see it, and then come back and listen. And if you're mad at me for that statement, good luck finding me in Texas.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you haven't seen it, what's wrong with you? Go see it. It's made $1 billion. It's made over $1 billion already.
Yeah,
go see
for good reason. Good reason.
But so overall, what'd you think? I mean, we'll just start with like overall impressions. How'd you feel about the movie?
I mean, I didn't go into it personally overly excited. She's never been a character that I was super big on, mostly because you know me, I was always more of a DC fanboy. Right. But, like, the MCU's been fantastic. These have been fantastic films. I still expected, a quality film. And I got a quality film, and was pretty surprised with how much I got sucked into it. Like, it was a really good movie. And I'm very, very happy that I went and saw it opening night.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very stoked myself. I mean, like you said, I've never been one who's really read a lot of Captain Marvel. I mean, I read the Avengers, so occasionally she's a part of that, or the Civil War story that they did, the second Civil War story that they did, she was a big part of. But I really didn't have a lot of experience with the character. I knew how Kelly Sue DeConnick kind of retconned her and made her a different kind of character and kind of changed her origin up a little bit, which I think is kind of what they went with for the movie.
Yeah. I mean, knew enough to know her name is Carol Danvers. Knew enough to know Marvel existed and some backstory, but never been a big Captain Marvel reader by any means.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, she pops up in the crossovers. But yeah, I mean, I thought the movie was excellent. I love the 90s time period. That just blew me away.
The only thing that upset me about it was something I thought about a couple days after, was how long ago was the 90s, and now we can use it as a timepiece for a film.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely feels like opening up a time capsule from the decade we came of age.
Yeah, it made me feel like a kid again, but also at the same time made me feel real old.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Blockbuster Video thing, has popped up right away, man. But I mean, there's jokes about floppy disks, and it just goes on and on.
I can't wait for it to come out on DVD and Blu-ray, just so I can pause that scene and pick out all the movie covers I recognize on the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know I saw True Crimes. I think it was. It was that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he was the secret spy.
True Lies. Yeah, there was a cutout of True Lies.
Yeah. And I think there was Coming to America was on that shelf somewhere.
I mean, probably. It was a big movie at the time.
I really want to pick them all out. That's what I want to do DVD-wise when this movie comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of good stuff to go back over. But in all reality, moving, into the kind of setup for, what they did with the movie. I mean, we went into this movie, as Marvel comic fans, 100% sure the Skrulls are the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've always been used to as far as Skrulls. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem envisioning the Kree as bad guys, because let's be real, there is nothing that isn't a shade of like darker gray in the Kree Skull War.
Right.
Like, they both have been terrible to each other, but the Skrulls have always been bad guys, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've never had to question that. They were always, the Skrulls were always the antagonist of the story, and so I like, that kind of subverts our expectations in a way about what we thought the Kree and the Skrulls were going to represent within the narrative by showing them just to be refugees who are actually just trying to find a new place to escape the Kree.
Yeah, no, that was a real cool take that I didn't expect. And honestly, I was real happy for it because it meant it was something I definitely hadn't seen in the comics. And that's the main thing I've always enjoyed about these movies, like, as a whole, is that, like, while they will pull stuff from the comics, and our parallels, like, they do split away from it unabashedly and tell their own thing and do their own thing. And this was a real big divergence from what we're used to, and I like that. It was a new story for me that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It also gets the Tesseract into the story in a way that kind of explains how it ended up getting into the hands of Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D.
No, like, one of the things I wanted to do real hard was, like, pause the movie because my brain just started running a million miles a minute, trying to remember chronologically, like, all right, where were the last places we saw this before it would have popped up here, and figuring out the connections and how it ended up in this place, and I know I told you a little bit ago, like, I honestly completely forgot about Project Pegasus until I was rewatching all the movies and got to Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it when he was going through all his dad's old stuff. So, like, there's your for sure direct line connection in the movies. Like, the last time we saw it was Howard pulling it out of the snow and ice while looking for Cap's body.
Well, so yeah, I will go one step further though and say that we did see Project Pegasus, the name, come up at the beginning of Avengers because that's the base that they're at. When they kind of walk into that base, you see like a NASA stamp and then it says Project Pegasus.
You're right. I forgot about that part. But yeah. So there were definitely a few places where that popped up to give us like that connection, and just goes to show how long of a setup this whole thing has been. Like, it's a reminder that there are no loose ends in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the way that they can just kind of, retcon the story in that way, but, what dropping things in like this doesn't change the overall arc that we've had, which allows them, that the fact that we've set things in the 90s and the fact that we'll probably set things in other time periods at some point, with Captain America and with Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
We just, we've left ourselves a lot of space to play with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have all sorts of space to play with, and I mean, of course, we filled in a little bit of that with the TV shows. I know you watched them. I did. Peggy Carter and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, we filled in a little bit of that, but there's plenty of room to play around still, honestly.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I definitely that was actually one of the things that I always liked about Hellboy, was the fact that we show him being born into the world, and then we jump the timeline so far forward that you had, a 50-year gap where you could just fill in story.
Yeah, and then they started doing that. I was super stoked when they started going back through all of his, like, first adventures in the 50s and stuff, like, in little mini-series.
Right.
But as far as the movie in and of itself, it was fantastic. I know I turned a few heads because I have said that, honestly, I enjoyed Captain Marvel more than I enjoyed Black Panther.
I mean,
and that's not because Black Panthers elaborate on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one of the things I love about a film is, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm tooting my own horn or a douchebag, but I like when they surprise me and I haven't been able to predict the ending or how this is going to go. And, like, Yeah, I saw the fact that like the Kree are actually terrible, like thing coming from a million miles away, but I did not at all see the Skrull or refugees
Right.
thing coming by any means, and that was a big shock and a big wow factor for me. Whereas Black Panther it's a great movie. It's a very political. It's almost like a political serial. I've made jokes before about it being Braveheart, but not with Scotsman and 2 hours shorter.
Sure.
But like it makes all the political movements you would expect in that coming of age Prince story. You can basically just read it off the pages of The Man with 1,000 Faces.
Right.
So, like, don't get me wrong. It's a great movie. I love it. The acting is fantastic. The script is fantastic. It didn't surprise me at any point. Captain Marvel did.
Sure. I guess I would agree to that, with the exception of the fact that what we talked about at the beginning is, and just me personally, I was never a Captain Marvel comic reader, but I was a Black Panther comic reader. Like, I read all of Christopher Priest stuff that was going on in the, 90s.
Right. And, I mean, that's fair and is definitely a factor. But, I mean, for me, I didn't read much of either character.
Okay.
So, like, I had some base knowledge of their existence and who they are and the things they've been through comic-wise. But I don't have, issues of them like I do with, like, Batman or Thor or anything in long boxes that are taking up too much space in one of my rooms. But
sure.
So I wasn't, like, super invested in one of these characters to where that ended up being a factor for me at all. So yeah, I ended up enjoying Captain Marvel more because it poked I will admit, like, part of that definitely comes from poking at my 90s nostalgia childhood factor, but a big part of it is because it surprised me and Black Panther didn't. And nothing against Black Panther. As I said, like, it doesn't have to surprise me. It's still a great film. I still love watching it. I've watched it 5 times and am not sick of it. It just didn't surprise me.
Right on. Well, so let's talk about Brie Larson. I mean, how did you feel that she? I mean, based on the limited knowledge that we obviously both have of Carol as a comic character, how did you feel from what you know that she? How do you feel she evinced that? Like, did she do a good job playing the character from your perspective?
From the bit I've read, it's not the same as what I've read, but also most of the little bit I've read with Captain Marvel is much more down the line, like, been through some more experiences, where this was much more, the origin story. So you have to look at it as, have they been through the same experiences that made her the more serious, commanding character she has been for a while in the comics? And you don't get that from Brie Larson, but you do get a very cocksure swagger that definitely knows what she's doing, because she is trained. She is a warrior from multiple planets.
Right.
But,
I kind of
she's
feel
still
like
got
she
that,
made it her own in a way. Like, she, when we see her play the character, my most recent knowledge of Carol in a story was Civil War II. And when I'm looking at who Carol was there and how Brie Larson played her, you're right. There are subtle things that are different, but I think that was something that was great. That was something that she kind of took and kind of made her own and brought her own, personal talent to the table when it came to how the character is perceived.
Yeah, no, she gave her own feel to it, but kept Carol's, like, regardless of training and stuff, like, Carol has always had, from the bit I've read, like, for sure that ace pilot swagger that you get from, like, Top Gun, or that you see, like, with Hal Jordan in Green Lantern stuff. Right. And she definitely used that, which can be a bit of a cliche, but in my opinion, it's one of those good cliches. Like, if you didn't have that, why didn't you use it? But she definitely gave her own flavor to it, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel like one of the best things about the movie is her performance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a great performance. The only thing, honestly, that outshone it for me was young Nick Fury, but it's hard to hold any sort of candle to Samuel L. Jackson because it's frickin' Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And in all reality, one of the big things, I mean, seeing him throughout the whole movie digitally de-aged is just a phenomenal feat of special effects.
No, like I know for a fact he is digitally, like, they digitally messed with his face to make him younger. They've gotten way too good at it because it just looks like they pulled him out of Pulp Fiction and gave him a haircut.
Absolutely.
And it's so good. But at the same time, it's kind of like weird in almost a scary way seeing Nick Fury like smile and make so many jokes.
Right. It was also cool to see, young Coulson, see, Clark Gregg being de-aged.
Yeah, like, I didn't even really consider, like, I know they announced him for it, and we were expecting it because, this is the early days of S.H.I.E.L.D. for sure. But, like, I kind of had, like, forgotten, I guess, but it was just so good to see bright, young, happy Coulson. I love Coulson. Coulson's one of the best MCU characters of all time, and it was so nice to see a young, bright, happy. He is like a golden retriever, and if anything happens to him, I'll kill everybody in this room and then myself.
Oh, I can understand, and it was interesting to see him, right away made, the joke of being. People being Skrulls and not knowing who you can trust was Coulson.
Yeah, because he got left at the Blockbuster.
It was so good.
It was so good. Everybody left. What?
Right. But no,
that was a fantastic moment.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying that was a fantastic moment. I loved it.
Oh yeah, it was a great joke for sure. So I guess before we wrap it up, what I want to talk about a little bit is how it's impossible to deny when we look at characters like Black Panther and Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel as the characters that are going to lead us into the next phase. I think it's impossible to deny the parallels that they share with Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things I like best about it, too, is none of them are, like, specifically like, oh, this is, this person's replacement. Like, each of them has, sure, more flavor of one of their predecessors than the others, but they all have a bit of all the characters that came before them, kind of feel. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I think for me, though, what I'm more specifically talking about is, and I'll start with Iron Man, right? Because if we look at Iron Man and Doctor Strange as their parallels, they are both rich men who are very good at what they do and suffer a terrible, terrible experience that humbles them and changes their point of view going forward, making them heroes.
Humbles them, and then they still wear armor of a douchebag.
Sure, but so I guess for me, like I said, then we go to Thor and we have Black Panther as Thor's parallel, right? Because Thor is an alien; he comes from a different world that scarcely is known about on Earth, and
he's the young prince who has to grow up. Yeah,
and we look at Wakanda, and it does the exact same thing. The Panther is someone who is not as familiar with the outside world, has never really had to be as familiar with the outside world. And now here he is having to deal with that.
Yeah, like you have a familiarity based on, like, I read about it in a book.
Right.
But you don't have that real life experience. Because you don't know that a pet store doesn't sell giant lizards.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, absolutely. They are a very good parallel. And you've got your decent parallel now between Captain Marvel and Captain America,
Well, right, and obviously, that's the key to all of this, right? Is you look at they're both characters who start their story in a different time period, have to adjust, have to come into the present day and adjust to what present day life is on Earth,
the traditionally
and what's going on
trained
and what's
soldier,
happened, and it's really, really hard for them to kind of acclimatize to that.
Yeah, they've got to adapt and deal with it, and they're traditionally trained soldiers.
Right.
And all like what they know is war. Because I mean, if you think about it, Cap, spent most of his life living through World War II, and then got woken up and has spent the entire time since either fighting aliens or supervillains or a combination of the two.
Exactly.
And Bree,
it's hard.
Carol, she wasn't a combat pilot, but she was trained for it, and then ended up in the Kree Skrull War, and that's all she knew for 6 years. And even though she has her memories back, all she really knows is war.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess for me, what this has led me to think is we've always talked about how we all thought Bucky would be the one to pick up the shield and carry Captain America's legacy into the future. But the reality is, it's just not necessary for someone else to be Captain America now.
No, it isn't. They all can easily retire, go off, do their own thing, whatever, what have you. Because there is a second generation of heroes now. Which is good, because honestly, everybody gets old. I mean, in real world terms, how old is Robert Downey Jr. now?
He's pushing 50, I'd probably say, or over 50 maybe.
I'm pretty sure he's 54, bro.
Okay. I mean, I'm bad at guessing people's ages.
That's fair. But I mean, you put that into real world terms, I'm 29 and I have worked physical jobs most of my life, and I feel like an old man most of the days. I can't imagine continuing to get beat up by space aliens at 54.
Right.
At that point, I will use all the money in the world that I have to give it to someone else, so I can just nap on a beach once in a while and not fucking think about it.
Sure.
One of the things I was laughing about the last time I was watching Infinity War was, you have that scene with him and Pepper in the park before the ship lands and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's talking, once again, giving him shit about, not actually wanting to give it up. And I'm just looking at him he's an old man. Of course he wants to give it up. He just doesn't want to give it up irresponsibly at this point. Give the man a break. He needs someone competent to take over for him. That's all he wants. That's all he wants at all, is someone competent. And then I promise you he'll have half a suit, just in the same way that most of my neighbors carry a gun for personal protection.
Sure.
At that point, it's just about keeping him and you safe, because he's not going to worry about anything else. He needs somebody competent to take over for him. That man wants to retire. Quit giving him crap. He's old.
Right. So I guess you keep talking about old men, and I guess what makes me feel like an old man is if you're 29 years old, does that mean you were still in your teenage years when this all started?
Well, let's see. Iron
Man came out in 2008.
Yeah, 2008. I was 18.
Jesus.
I was able to legally vote.
Well, you've officially made me feel like the oldest man.
Well, that's good. Because I need people to be older than me once in a while, because all my wife's friends are younger than her, and she's a year and a half younger than me. So
sure.
I need an occasional older person around me, someone with a gray happy trail.
Right on. All right. Well, I think overall, just coming full circle, obviously go see the movie. It's a very worthwhile addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if we're looking at the parallels between these characters and the previous ones, Captain Marvel is going to be the leader going into this next phase.
Yeah. I do have one thing to say about that, though, for fanboys. Well, pseudo fanboys, in my opinion. Because if you complain about everything, you're not a real fanboy. And that's just my opinion. Don't feel the need to endorse me. But for all the people who are like, oh man, she's just gonna be a Mary Sue and beat up Thanos now for Endgame. Like, if that were the case, first off, I need you to just let go of the term Mary Sue for lots of reasons that I don't need to get into. But secondly, if that were to happen, or if you think that's going to happen, then in my opinion, you're accusing the Russo brothers of lazy writing, because that's what that would be. And if that's the case, I need you to go back and watch Infinity War and Winter Soldier and tell me a single moment in either of those films that is lazy writing.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree to that. They've definitely, since they came on board with Winter Soldier, they have definitely proved they're, the guys to carry this franchise and do these big crossover things. And don't get me wrong, I love Joss Whedon. I loved Avengers, and I even liked Avengers Age of Ultron. It wasn't as good, but I still enjoyed it, and I love Joss Whedon. But the Russo brothers, man, they're the guys that have always needed to be the ones doing this.
Oh, yeah. No, they were the perfect picks. And we could not have really asked for better than for them to be the finishing pieces for the Infinity Saga.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Kevin Feige started referring to it as, the Infinity Saga.
Yeah, which honestly is a perfect way to call it. Yeah. Like,
all right,
calling it the end of
thanks
phase
for sitting
3.
in with us, guys, and listening to us, rant about Captain Marvel and what we liked about it. Thanks again to Joe for sitting in and joining us on this journey.
I do what I can. I like to be around once in a while.
Yeah, I like you to be around once in a while too. I wish you were actually physically sitting in the room with me.
I mean, well, you do stuff, and it's a big country, and I'll see you in a couple weeks, and we'll do a recording thing, and I'll be in the room, and I can pinch your nipples in the middle of it.
Okay, well, I don't know if we need to go that far, but I would like you to be in the room, also because it just makes it easier.
It's happening.
This whole process.
It does. It is a little easier if we're just sitting next to each other. I won't lie.
Right on, guys. Well, we're going to be back at you later with more nerd news. Joe's going to be here for Avengers Endgame, and we're going to do some reviews then for Shazam and Hellboy, which come out. Well, Shazam is already out. Hellboy comes out next weekend.
Yeah, we'll do those right before Endgame, and I don't know if we have time while I'm in town, maybe do the one for Endgame.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to try to make time for an Endgame review.
Oh yeah, no, that's going to be a long one.
I mean, I try to keep it, under a certain amount of time, but I will be, okay with the idea of the Endgame one going long.
Well, people like 2-hour films, but we're getting a 3-hour one for Endgame, so shut up.
That's true. It's going to be a big, long one.
I'm so stoked.
Absolutely.
All right,
I can't wait.
All right, guys. Next time?
Yep, next time. And until then, stay geeky.